Welcome to Crime Colosseum, and today we're looking into three most terrifying serial killer cases of Europe. Try to figure out how someone becomes a monster. And why did no one see them coming? Number 1. Jack the Ripper, UK. London, 1888. The East End district of Whitechapel was shrouded in fog, lit only by flickering gas lamps and filled with the restless movement of the poor. Overcrowded lodging houses, narrow alleys, and dimly lit streets created an atmosphere where danger felt ever present, even before anyone knew exactly what it was. At night, people walked quickly, avoiding eye contact, as though instinctively aware that something sinister lurked in the shadows. The silence of these streets wasn't peaceful. It was tense, heavy, and uncertain. And within that silence, rumors began to spread about a figure who moved unseen through the darkness. No one knew his name. No one saw his face clearly. But his presence would soon turn Whitechapel into the center of one of the most chilling criminal mysteries in history. The first confirmed victim, Mary Ann Nichols, was found brutally murdered in August 1888. At first, authorities believed it was another tragic but isolated act of violence, sadly not uncommon in the dangerous streets of Whitechapel. However, just days later, another woman was discovered dead in a similar, horrifying manner. Soon, patterns began to emerge. The victims were vulnerable women. The attacks occurred at night. The mutilations were disturbingly precise. Fear spread rapidly through the community. Women stopped walking alone after dark. Doors were locked earlier. Conversations turned from everyday concerns to whispers of an unknown killer. Newspapers sensationalized the murders, giving the mysterious attacker a name that would echo through history: Jack the Ripper. Not long after committing the crimes, the killer started sending letters to the press, intensifying the panic. The writer mocked the police, taunted investigators, and described the crimes with chilling confidence. Whether genuine or hoaxes, these letters transformed the murders into a public spectacle, drawing global attention. The murders grew more brutal with each incident. Victims were mutilated in ways that horrified even seasoned officers. The removal of organs suggested knowledge of anatomy and a disturbing level of control. The killer struck swiftly, vanished silently, and left behind scenes so shocking they dominated national headlines. Every new murder intensified public fear. Patrols increased, but they seemed ineffective. The killer always appeared one step ahead, disappearing into the fog before anyone could intervene. The investigation faced immense challenges. Forensic science was primitive. Crime scenes were quickly contaminated by curious onlookers and journalists. Thousands of letters flooded police stations, many containing false confessions or misleading information. Suspects ranged from doctors to immigrants to members of high society, yet no definitive evidence could confirm any theory. Most importantly, authorities struggled to understand that they were not dealing with random acts of violence, but with a repeat offender following a consistent pattern, something rarely conceptualized at the time. Then, just as suddenly as the murders began, they stopped. No arrest, no confession, only silence. The killer vanished, leaving behind a mystery that has endured for more than a century. Jack the Ripper represents the birth of the modern serial killer myth. His crimes were not solely about murder, they were about dominance, terror, and psychological control over an entire city. By never being caught, he achieved something even more chilling. He became immortal through mystery. To this day, the case remains unsolved. Yet it transformed criminal investigations, pushing authorities toward the development of behavioral profiling and more organized investigative methods. More importantly, it left behind a haunting lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones who disappear before they are ever fully understood. Number 2. The Rostov Ripper, Ukraine. Decades later, in the Soviet Union of the 1970s and 1980s, vast railway lines stretched across silent forests and isolated towns. Children often walked long distances alone. Hitchhiking was common. The environment was quiet, almost deceptively calm. Somewhere along these lonely routes, a seemingly ordinary man began offering rides, conversation, and small acts of kindness, with deadly intentions hidden beneath his polite demeanor. Reports of missing children and young women began to accumulate. Eventually, bodies were discovered in wooded areas, mutilated in ways that shocked investigators. Yet authorities hesitated to link the cases, partly because acknowledging a serial killer within the Soviet system was politically uncomfortable. But they couldn't ignore the reality for too long. There was a serial killer, and he was not stopping. Andrei Chikatilo appeared unremarkable, a teacher, a husband, a neighbor. But behind that facade was a deeply disturbed individual driven by violent fantasies and psychological compulsions. He lured victims with promises of help or food, leading them into secluded areas before attacking with uncontrollable brutality. The killings continued for years, eventually exceeding 50 victims. Each crime displayed escalating violence, suggesting a growing psychological obsession. As he evaded capture, his confidence increased, allowing him to travel across regions and exploit gaps in investigative coordination. One of the most devastating mistakes occurred when authorities arrested and executed the wrong suspect early in the investigation. Meanwhile, Chikatilo continued killing. Bureaucratic denial, poor communication, and reluctance to acknowledge the existence of serial murder delayed the truth for over a decade. Eventually, behavioral patterns helped investigators identify suspicious movements near railway stations. Chikatilo was finally arrested in 1990. During interrogation, he confessed to numerous murders, shocking the entire Soviet Union. His case forced Soviet authorities to confront an uncomfortable reality. Serial killers could exist anywhere, even in tightly controlled societies. It led to significant changes in investigative procedures across Eastern Europe and highlighted the dangers of ignoring uncomfortable truths. Number 3. Fritz Haarmann, Germany. Germany in the 1920s was recovering from the devastation of World War I. Cities like Hanover bustled with travelers, displaced youths, and people searching for stability. Among them stood a man who appeared helpful, even trustworthy, a police informant known for assisting lost boys at train stations. Young men began disappearing. Families searched desperately, but with little success. Then rumors emerged about bones found near the Lean River. At first dismissed as exaggerations, the discovery would soon expose something far more horrifying. Fritz Haarmann used his role as a police informant to gain trust. He invited vulnerable youths to his apartment under the pretense of offering food or shelter. Once inside, he carried out gruesome attacks that stunned investigators when finally uncovered. The scale of his crimes became staggering. Dozens of victims were eventually linked to him. Neighbors later recalled hearing screams, but dismissing them as drunken arguments, letting him get away with gruesome murders. Authorities initially trusted Haarmann because of his cooperation with police. This misplaced confidence allowed him to operate longer than he otherwise might have. Eventually, suspicious reports and physical evidence led to his arrest. Investigators uncovered chilling proof of systematic killings that shocked the nation. Haarmann's case highlights how predators can weaponize trust and social roles. His identity as a police informant created a psychological barrier that delayed suspicion and let him get away with his nefarious activities for so long. While this was a very gruesome case, the next one is someone you'd probably never expect. Thanks for watching. Which case did you find the most shocking? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to watch more of such videos. Until next time.